With 6 weeks to go until the Voice referendum, the No campaign is now surging ahead in the polls. Today's Newspoll shows that for the first time, the No vote has tipped over into a majority. This means the Voice is currently on track to fail. According to the Newspoll, the current vote is 53% no, 38% yes, and 9% undecided. This campaign is now an even harder proposition for the Yes camp. For a long time, campaigners have spoken about the large number of undecided voters out there. But now the Yes campaign needs to win No voters over. Simon Benson today reports that the No vote leads among all age groups other than the young. Today's Newspoll also shows the coalition has leapt ahead of Labor on primary votes for the first time since the federal election. It now leads 37 points to Labor's 35. Although Labor is still ahead in two-party preferred votes for 53 to 47. But let's have a closer look at this primary figure. So for the first time since the election last year, the coalition has a stronger primary vote than Labor. For coalition supporters, this Newspoll will reinforce their belief that it was a good move for Dutton to campaign against the Voice. But here's another point. Albanese was riding high in the polls before he started campaigning for the Voice. Just 4 months ago, he held a 6-point lead, according to The Australian. His personal popularity and support for the Voice are intrinsically linked. The Voice campaign is dragging support for Albanese down, and Albanese is dragging support for the Voice down. It's a downward spiral, and it looks like come October the 14th, according to today's polls, it won't be a good outcome for either the Voice or Albanese's own political fortunes. Simon Benson writes today, whether it's the Voice or the perception that the government is distracted from bread and butter economic issues, Albanese's and the Labor government's political dominance is being challenged. He writes the latest Newspoll will reinforce the Liberal leader's approach and offer the Greens no reason to change their strategy of playing hardball with Labor over key legislation on housing and resources tax. But Labor hopes that having John Farnham's song You're the Voice as their campaign mantra will reinvigorate support for the cause. That a single song is so powerful that it will help the Yes camp leapfrog the No supporters in the polls. Well, that's what one Labor politician suggested last night on Paul Murray's program.
I think all those voters who are sort of undecided, they're paying attention, they're showing huge interest, and I think we're going to start to see an uptick and a really strong positive movement before we get to the polls in October.
But is one song powerful enough to change your vote from no to yes? Well, let me know what you think. But the Fin Review reports today that the Yes campaign made much of its coup. And I quote, it was, reporters were briefed, the first time permission has ever been granted for the song to be used in a commercial. The Fin reports that this dubious claim was uncritically repeated by most outlets and strengthened by quotes from Tim Wheatley, who is the son of Farnham's longtime manager, Glenn Wheatley. The quote was, John and my father have fiercely protected this song's use for decades. I think for this very moment, he said. Now, The Guardian Australia reported, and I quote, it's believed to be the first time Farnham, who's recovering from cancer, has ever permitted the song to be used in a commercial. It was a claim many other media outlets repeated. But the Fin Review reports that in the past 40 years, this song or the tune has been used to sell everything from chocolate to cars. The Fin writes that there was the 2001 Australian Electoral Commission enrolment ad. Have a look. Then there was the Cadbury advert from 2009. And Ford used it in 2012 when the ghost of John Farnham implored a driver to use his voice to tell the car what music to play. You know what? If you're not sick of this song by the end of tonight's show, you're definitely going to be sick of it by the end of a 6-week campaign. The Voice also played in adverts from Telecom and in 2007 in a comedy movie, Hot Rod. Now, it is true that John Farnham hasn't licensed his own recording of this song to other campaigns before, but it's hardly the first time the song or the tune has been used. And not all Farnham fans are happy about the iconic song being used to promote The Voice. According to the Daily Telegraph, the move has backfired among some fans, with many taking to social media to say they're disappointed in the star. And this is a snippet of what the Yes advert featuring the song that just started playing yesterday looks like. To ensure balance, here's what a snippet from the No campaign looks like.
And they want the rules to change. This is a massive change, and it will mean that some Australians are treated differently based on the colour of their skin.
Now, opposition leader Peter Dutton was asked about the Farnham song, and he gave an interesting response. He said people should actually listen to the words of the song.
The key line in the lyrics there is, you know, you're the voice, try and understand it. And I don't want to sing it, I don't want to break into verse with you here, Andrew, but I honestly don't think... I don't think most Australians understand it, and they want to be informed. There are good people on the yes and no case, or who have decided to vote yes or no, but there are many people in the middle who just say, well, I've got a big hesitation here.
Now, meanwhile, the opposition is also raising a point about a new book written by Uluru co-authors Pat Anderson and Megan Davis, which again states that the Uluru Statement from the Heart is longer than just one page. The book, called Our Voices from the Heart, includes this line about the Uluru Statement, and I quote, "It is 15 pages long and includes 3 elements: the one-page pitch to the Australian people, our story of the First Nations history of Australia, and the explanation of the legal reform." So a brand new book just out by the Uluru co-authors Pat Anderson and Megan Davis, again repeating the claim that the Uluru Statement from the Heart is 15 pages. Wasn't this misinformation or a conspiracy to suggest the Uluru Statement from the Heart is more than one page? I mean, that's what Lee Sales said. That's what Anthony Albanese says. He says he hasn't even read the remaining pages. Why would he? And Megan Davis has also retracted her previous comments that the Uluru Statement is longer than one page. Yet here, in a brand new book, she herself writes that it is 15 pages. Dutton, meanwhile, says that if he becomes Prime Minister, he'll hold a referendum on Indigenous recognition in the Constitution, something that a large proportion of Australians have indicated they do support. But he said there'll be no voice model enshrined in the Constitution.
Would you have another referendum for constitutional recognition in that term?
We went to the last election and a number of elections before that with that as our policy, and that will be our policy going into the next election as well.
So you'd hold another referendum?
I believe very strongly, yes, I believe very strongly that it is the right thing to do, but enshrining a voice in the Constitution is divisive. It will divide the country down the middle. It will not provide the practical outcomes